Okay, good morning. I was asked to share. Oh, okay. Thank you. Good morning. I was asked to be shared first. I don't know why, but it's okay. Okay, you know, I thought that Pastor was going on this Vim trip, so I really had no intention of going. But even though it was real tempting because, you know, I was going to be able to spend 2 weeks with Jeffrey in Kumi, Uganda, but even at that, I didn't think I was going to go. So I was a little bit upset when the pastor came back from her leave and said that she was pregnant with twins. And so I figured that had to be God's will. And so I went, and I'm glad I went. Okay. But then Laura said to me, she said, well, you know, you're going because you can't say no to the pastor. And I said, that's not true. But I got to be honest. I mean, it is hard to say no to a pregnant pastor that always eating that waddles like a duck. Okay. So, Pastor, if you're listening, thank you. You know, but the important thing is I learned so much about the God that we serve and the children and people of God that we serve. They do so much with so little in such a loving way. We have so much at our disposal, and we do so little. I realize all that we have are distractions from seeing God and serving Him. So we get to Kumi, and it reminds us that we're staying at the best hotel, called the Kumi Hotel. She reminds us along the whole way there 4 or 5 times, this is the best hotel. So I get there, and I see, first thing I see, and my eyes light up, is 24-hour Wi-Fi. I had my iPad, I had my computer with me. 10 days, the Wi-Fi never came up. So I figured I'd take a hot shower. 10 days, the hot shower never came up. But what I did learn was that the internet and the hot showers and the getting to places on time wasn't important. It was just a distraction. They say that true growth only comes when you are uncomfortable. I was asked to make the sound of barnyard animals. Hogs, sheep, horses, chicken, etc. I was uncomfortable. I was asked to give a testimony in a church of 250 people, and I was uncomfortable. I was asked to give a speech to 500 people 4 hours late in a suit on a hot day, and I was uncomfortable. Oh. I was really uncomfortable when they said to speak slowly and enunciate and speak with a British accent. Now that's like asking Brenda to give a short talk. I was uncomfortable because I was afraid they might laugh at my jokes. But what I learned it was never about me or any of us as individuals. It was about how much we could teach them or about how much we can give them. It was simply about learning to love them, to fellowship with them, to work with them, to break bread with them, and to pray with them, and to just celebrate and share our love of God with them. You know, worshiping with them was a lot of fun because it was different. It was wonderful and unique. Nobody was wearing shorts. Nobody was asleep in the pews. And their pews were in dirt floors and in the hard benches, okay? So, and they're alive and they're demonstrative about the God, okay? They're not afraid to share their testimonies, whereas we have to be proud to do that kind of stuff. So I said in a speech rather eloquently, well, I thought it was eloquent, you know, that there is a vast difference in our culture, a vast difference in our language, and miles of physical separation between us and them, that only with the help of the Holy Spirit can we succeed. So it was all about the children, about your children and our children. To know them is to love them, and to love them is to see the face of God in them. So we cannot neglect them, we cannot fail them, and we need to nurture and love them. So it was a very rewarding trip for me, and I was one that learned much more than I could ever give back to them. Thank you.
Hi. My name is Michelle, and yes, this was also my first missionary trip all the way in Uganda, all the way in Africa. So it was a very, very long journey, starting at the airport when we got dropped off at San Francisco. But we got there, all of us got there safe and sound. We were greeted by the YCVM host members in Erie. But being there, it was just amazing to meet the people there, and it was just amazing to be at a different place than here at home. Once I stepped off the airplane, I don't know, I just immediately felt the difference. I remember Aries saying that for the first timers, that once you step off the plane, you feel a difference, and I felt that difference. I don't know if anyone else did, but each night at the hotel, at the end of the day, we would gather together and have a debrief led by Ari. And most of the time, we shared where we saw Jesus today throughout our days at the school or anywhere else we went. And there were a lot of places I saw Jesus while we were there. So I'm going to share a few stories. I guess the first day we were there, I remember Auntie Dawn and I slept in until I say around like 10 or something, because our clock was wrong. So we slept in. We're like, oh, we slept in. It was good. We had enough sleep. But that first day, I remember it was a kind of chill day. It was relaxing, and I think a few of us decided to walk to the school, and we got a little bit lost. And we saw this woman, right? She was carrying, I think, what were they? I don't know. She was carrying, vegetables on her head and area. And do you know where KCVS is, the school? And she just dropped everything and took us there. And it was just amazing how we just asked a stranger of where it is. And she just took us there. And then we went there and we said thank you. And that's where I saw Jesus in her, how she just dropped everything and led strangers to a school. And just while being at the school, and the children were in class, it was just amazing just to see the school, because I've always seen pictures of them, but being at the school was just, it was just breathtaking. Seeing the kids in there learning and singing and chanting, it was just amazing. And another place where I saw Jesus was once we got to Kumi, we had a lot of car problems. Our van broke down, a few cars broke down, and for them it was no problem. I think for us, we were just a little freaked out. And the first time I think the van broke down, I think it was on our way to Kumi, and it was overheating. And we broke down in front of a family's house and / store, so they were having a business there too as well. And they got buckets of water out for us just to calm the van down. And once I saw that, I was like, wow, you don't see that back at home here. Your car breaks down and you call 911 or something. And we also had another time when our van broke down. Was we were on our way back to Kampala, and a mechanic noticed that the tire, it was loose. So he noticed it was loose, and he took us into a shop to fix it. And I remember, I think Terry, the pastor wife, shared how that the mechanic, God sent an angel to help us, because if that mechanic wasn't there and he didn't point it out, then we would have gone to accident. So that's when and it was fast service. We waited around 2 hours, but it wasn't that long. We had time, we interacted with the people there. So I was just thankful for the people there just to help fix our van just like that. It was, Um, Another place where I saw God was the first Sunday we were there. We went to the PAG church in Soroti, and the van was late, and Catherine had a car, one of the YCVM members, and she decided to take two of us. So Pastor Phil and I went because he asked me to share a testimony. So we were going, and the driver accidentally missed the speed bump. So we flew up into the roof of the car, and I hit my shoulder really bad. There was a big bruise right here. And Emmanuel, we call him Emma as well. He asked me if I was okay the whole time. He was holding on to me all the way to the church. And the next day when he came to the hotel, he still asked me if I was okay. So I think I just saw Jesus in him, because he was just so caring and loving of how he kept on asking me how I was doing. And the last place where I really saw Jesus was at the commissioning of the school, the picture over there. After all the long speeches and everything, after we ate, there was some celebration, there was some music and dancing. And it was just wonderful to see all those kids dance, and the families and the members. And while I was talking to some people, I saw one child. He was just staring at me the whole time, and I noticed. I was like, why is he staring at me? And then just a few minutes later, he walked over and just held my hand for a few minutes until we had to leave. And that moment was just very touching, because just having a random child walk up to you and hold your hand, what would you think? It's like, why is the kid holding my hand? But to me, it was just touching, because, I don't know, it just had some kind of connection that he needed some comfort, maybe. But I just saw Jesus working in that moment there, and on the commissioning of the school. It was just full of joy and happiness and dancing, even though Uncle Steve was 4 hours late. But all of us, we were just happy that the school opened, and there's children in there, and this trip was just amazing. I loved all the team members who went, and I just want to thank Ari for being an amazing team leader, for leading us there. Thank you.
Hello, church. I'm here to tell you about the recent mission trip to Uganda from my point of view. When we were in Kumi, we stayed at a hotel. It wasn't nice by American standards, but by Ugandan standards, it was very comfortable. And my favorite part about that was that we could actually walk to the school. It was about maybe a half-mile walk. So whenever we had the chance, we would walk to school. And we would walk past huts and through fields, people's backyards where they grew their food. And whenever we walked by a local, they would kind of look at us kind of sideways, because they don't get a lot of light-skinned people there. We would have a tail of kids following us. Some of the older kids would practice their English with us, and it would be kind of funny. They'd be like, "Hi, hello, how are you?" And then we would say, "Fine," and they'd say, "Hi, hello, how are you?" So on a day after we kind of said our last goodbyes, but we were still in Kumi, we were working in the school, and Steve and I decided to walk back. And so when walking back, we did our normal circuit of walking past these houses, and the local kids came to expect to see us there, so they were kind of like gangs of kids waiting to say hello. It was pretty exciting. As we were turning onto the last road to go back to the hotel, Steve and I heard someone calling and yelling, "Teacher, teacher!" And we turned around, and it was this kid who was in PE4, so he'd be like a fourth grader here. He was riding a bicycle, and he was yelling across a whole field. When we turned and said hello to him, he was really far, but you could see how big his smile was. That's something that I don't think I'm going to forget, is how happy people were to see you, and how joyful everyone was. Interactions like that are where I found God's presence, and where I got to be God's hands and heart, because I got to bring that to two kids who were strangers, and somehow in the short span of time that we were there, we became good friends. The kids of Kumi, they're pretty different than kids here. They all know how to farm really well. Ben and I, we were given the task of making this little garden off to the side. One of my first thoughts was we're surrounded by a field. What's the difference of having a little garden? So immediately one of the kids produced a hoe out of thin air. He just started hoeing the ground. And he was doing it really well. And so I offered to help, because it's kind of weird to have a kid doing manual labor and you're not at least helping. So I started hoeing the ground, and I got really tired. My back was hurting. These kids are kind of looking at me like I'm doing it wrong or something. I kind of tried to do it harder. And then Ben took a turn. And then eventually another kid took it, and the kids started taking turns, because they all grow up on farms, or at least they have their own fields to tend to grow their own food and to grow food to sell. So in the end, we portioned off this little plot, and we cut it into 4, and we had these seeds. We had sunflowers, we had peas, pumpkins, and squash. So we gave the seed packets to the teachers, and kind of look at them kind of sideways, these are seeds. And then, you rip them and they have the seeds in their hand. So they come to me and they're like, "Teacher, how do we plant these? Do we sow them? Do we throw them on the field, or do we plant them?" And I said, let me see. So I grabbed the packet and I read the back of it. They expected me to know, because we brought these seeds, they know their crops really well, because it's kind of like their lifeblood. For us, gardening is kind of like a hobby. It was really interesting, that intersection of how we came together for this little project, and it was really evident how different we were, but how at the same time we come together for something bigger than our cultures. And I kind of saw that in the children when they heard that we were making a garden. And so a lot of kids would kind of sneak out of class, and by the end of it, we had this whole audience standing around the garden watching us, of all these different grades. And so I called out a 6th grader, a kid from P6, to help us. He grabbed the hoe and he started making rows. And then another kid who was a lot younger, he was P3, I think, started planting seeds. And then another girl from P5 started planting seeds. And nice, neat rows. And by the end, we had a little miniature farm that I've never seen someone so excited about growing pumpkin and sunflower. But maybe it was more than just the plants that we were excited for. This trip was a time for us to see God in strangers, to see God in friends, to see God in people you see every Sunday, but once you see them in a new context, in a new light, you see God new. And maybe that's what Pentecost is all about, right? Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on us. Tongues of fire and all that stuff.
Wow, wasn't that powerful? These people, my team members, when I asked them to share, I thought they were going to go along, but they took shorter than I thought. And actually, Jeffrey was going to share, but he's not able to be with us, so we asked him to share when he's here during Sunday school. So I'm going to do an African thing now and invite team members who didn't get a chance to speak if they want to say a little word on the fly. I didn't give them any pre-warning, I'm telling you. Let's see if they learned anything from their mission trips. So I'm going to invite Ben or Donna or Becky if they want to share, add something that they have experienced, they have learned, they have seen of God. Ben, you've been called. This is extemporaneous worship.
Okay, I'll share something that I shared actually in our weekly or in our daily debrief about where we saw God. It was actually the first day that we were there. There's a guy named Bob, somebody that I've known for 10 years through pictures and videos, and I guess he knows me through pictures and videos too, but not very much. He's mainly just heard about me. He's one of the original founders of YCVM, and I knew who he was, but I had never met him actually, even though I had traveled there in 2007 and 2009. He was not around at that time. So the first day that we were there, we hadn't gotten to Kumi yet. We just got off the plane. We were staying at this motel very close to the airport, and he was part of the welcoming team. These people that, they had to bring all the vans to carry our stuff, and there were, just a bunch of people affiliated with YCVM helping us to make the long journey. So he's there, and I know who he is because I recognize him in the picture, and he's looking at me, and I'm like, why is he looking at me? This is Bob. I know who he is. So the second day, before we're about to depart for Kumi, he comes up to me, and he's like, Ben, I just wanted to finally meet you. I just wanted to finally meet this great man. And I was like, what? What? Well, I've been here 3 times now, but I don't think really that great. What makes me so great? And so he said, he knows of my involvement from the very beginning through Ari, I guess. And I know his heart and his passion for the vulnerable children in Kumi. I always remember this one video where he says something like, with God, anything is, there's no situation is too great for God to handle. And that really stuck with me. And I thought, oh wow, that's something that, definitely comes from the heart of a founder, of a visionary. And so he's calling me a great person. I think he's a great person for actually coming up with this whole thing. I don't really understand that. So he's telling me he was really wanted to talk with me and get to know me, and then he mentioned that it was just this really unique sacrifice for me to donate my wedding gift to YCVM. And then I realized what he was talking about, because when I got married in 2007, we donated some money. We asked our guests to donate some money to YCVM, which kind of got the school off the ground. So I realized that's why he thought that was such a unique sacrifice, is because I did that. Now, and it kind of struck me that it actually had that kind of a deep impact on him, that he thought, wow, that was really an amazing thing. For me, it was no big deal. But he thought that was a great thing, and he just wanted to talk with me about what prompted that. Anyways, I didn't get to talk with him after that. We traveled, and he was busy the other day, so I didn't get to talk to him. But when I reflected back on that, it made me feel like it was more, like my life was more worth it. That I made the right call at some point. I didn't know it. I didn't know the depth of what it would mean to him, of what it would mean to YCVM or the people there. Because I've been struggling lately actually with self-worth and with wondering, am I doing the right things in life? Am I making the right decisions? Is my life going to amount to anything? And it was really kind of amazing that I traveled all the way to Kumi, or all the way to Uganda once again, and Jesus has to confront me in the form of Bob and tell me that I'm a great person. And I guess that immediately made the trip an eye-opener for me. So thank God for that. I just thank God for Bob, thank God for YCVM, And I don't know, I guess making that decision a long time ago, 2006. So that was where I saw Jesus.
Well, once you make a mission trip, so much goes on. And there's so many emotions. There's so many things that happen. It's like hard to pick something out, and it's hard to follow Ben's story. But but it was even though this is my second time. So back in 2009, I got a chance to meet the YCVM board members, but. So it's like 5 years, and I never emailed them, I never really communicated. But once I saw them again, it was like, oh, there's my friends, And so it's just like time really didn't pass, It's like we just connected right away, and that was such a great thing. I mean, I was so looking forward to seeing Among Grace, and then when we saw each other, all we could do was hug and cry, because it was just that connection that was there, and I know it was there because of God. It has to be. There's no other way, because what do we have in common? She's a teacher. I'm not. I'm retired. I'm an old lady, and she lives in Uganda. I live in Oakland. So many differences, but what we have is God and the love for the children to achieve. Being able to go to the school and work with the kids. I had P3 or Form 3 children, which was like third grade, but they range in age from 7 to 15. So it's like the little short one to a real tall one, But they're just so eager to find out what you have to say, and just to learn new things, and just to be with us who are not Ugandans. It was so great, and I know Steve can attest to this because he learned their names except for two. Do you remember the two? No. So that was one of our tasks, to learn the names of our students. And so as long as they sat in the same place, I remembered their names. But they're so, okay, so I used to work at a school, and those children at KZVS are so different from the children here in our public schools, because they're so respectful. You walk in, they stand up and they say, welcome to P3, and they say the whole thing, and at the end it says, you're most welcome, Auntie Donna. I said, wow, this makes me feel so good, it's just so great. Let's see, do I have any others? Michelle was my roommate. We had a great time. Well, it was great. Okay, so our team was together all this time, and so we got to be closer, as individuals, as team members, and, like we hung out in each other's rooms and shared medicines and mosquito coils, and, and shared how many bites did you get? Oh, I got this many. But it was great. And of course, Ari's wonderful as our team leader, and just to help us get over some of the bumps, like, why is things aren't on time? Well, that's the way it is, It's like we're on Ugandan time. It's so much different from Chinese time. Yeah. So, but it's always a great experience. And if you ever have the opportunity to go on a mission trip, it doesn't have to be Uganda, but just go on a mission trip, because God's there. God's there. No matter where you go, God's there, and you'll see God. God's waiting for you to find him. Thank you.
We will let Becky have the last word, because she has something to share with you from our YCVM members. They wrote us a beautiful card and a gift, so you get to hear directly from them through Becky's words. I had many great joys taking this team, and one of my great joys was actually Steve was my teammate. We had the second grade class. And I taught them this song that made all kinds of animal noise. And I just love him for it. He made the valiant effort to make hog sounds and horse neighings and sheep baas, even though he was extreme. I could see his extreme discomfort with it. So I really, and the joy was seeing him in the soccer field with children running. It was pure joy, pure unbounded joy. I also want to share one, sometimes God meets us in expected ways, but also completely unexpected ways, is when you receive from somebody you expected to give to. At the hotel we stayed, there was a lady who cleaned our rooms and did our wash for us. Her name was Christine. She was 6 months pregnant. And I hadn't paid her yet. So I was like, oh, I have to pay for my husband's wash because you've been washing his and he's in a different room. So add it all up and bring it to me tomorrow. And then I didn't see her. So I asked a different lady who was there, so where's Christine? And this lady tells me, oh, she's had a miscarriage. And so I was like, oh no, is she gonna come? She's like, oh, I don't think she's in any, because she was already 6 months pregnant, so it's a very serious condition, right? And the very next day, I actually see her limp along on a motorcycle. She goes back, they have this public transport means, they're called piki-pikis, on a little moped, comes to the hotel because she needs to get in advance in order for her to make the hospital visit. And so I see her, and I kind of go and I said, Christine, I heard, I'm so sorry. And all I could offer her was a prayer. So I just held her and prayed with her. And I said, I'm so sorry. Is there anything I can do? And no, thank you for praying for me. And then the next day, she sends a giant bag of roasted peanuts in her condition for the team to eat. So we ate as snacks because we had a long, difficult journey back to Kampala. We ate the pack of peanuts that she had roasted for us, and we had leftovers, so we shared it with the church the next on Sunday. And so this is kind of an example of the kind of grace we've experienced and received there, is that the heart of giving has nothing to do with how much you have. It's got nothing whatsoever. And this is what you see every time you go on a mission, is learning about grace, learning about those who have and those who have not, and learning about what it is to have that attitude, to learn a little bit of God's grace. It's not how you're able, it's not how much you have. It's really about giving of yourself, whatever it may be, whether you think people deserve it or not. And this is the lesson we learn, and that's the lesson I learn again and again. I've been going on mission trips and doing mission work for now many, many years, and this is what is the lesson. That giving and the spirit of grace is from God. It's not from what you have and what we think people who we give to deserve. So, all right.
Well, yes, this trip, I think, was just filled with moments of grace. And if I can just piggyback on what a few people shared, for instance, the planting of seeds that you saw with Jacinto. So after you plant the garden, I said, well, did you go get water and water it? He said, no, they don't do that. You wait for the grace of God to provide rain. It had actually thunderstormed maybe 2 or 3 days prior, and I'm thinking, this must be the end of the rainy season. Is there going to be enough rain to grow those seeds? Sure enough, Friday night it rains. So, God's grace. Ben's story about Bob. So I was riding in the car with Bob on the first day we were going to RTC before we went to the village of Kumi, and that's when the van overheated and all. And Bob is a law student. Yeah, he was supposed to be having an exam that day, but we found out that before he was a law student, he was an auto mechanic. He has these skills. When he found out that the van had overheated, he took time out of his day. He was supposed to go to class, take an exam. He took the van in and stayed with it for probably 2 hours, or worked on it. I don't know if he actually worked on it, and got it back to us so we could continue the journey to Kumi. Just examples of how they sacrificed. He's talking about how Ben sacrificed. He himself just sacrificed that very day for us. We got into Kumi at 1 a.m. the next morning. That's how long that journey was. So let's see, my little personal sharing. You'll hear much more the next 2 Sundays if you come to the Sunday school class. But so on the last day that we spent with the kids, I just got to sort of pop in and see what the nursery class was like, because that's one of the biggest classes are the children who are under 5. They're not yet, they're sort of kindergarten, maybe 4 years old, 5 years old. And we're trying to pack a lot into that day because that was our last day with the kids there. So I wanted them to get a sampling of the books, to share the big book with them. We were trying to retake the Polaroid pictures. That's so exciting. They just fell in love with having their picture taken. And then we were trying to do the pictures on fabric that the kids would draw, and we're going to bring back and make some quilts or wall hangings with. So all this is going on with the 4- and 5-year-olds, and it's like a 3-ring circus. And they don't speak that much English. And you're in the room, and your sound just echoes off the hard surfaces of the wall. So you got the 3 teachers trying to work with the kids, trying to take Polaroid pictures. I'm showing them a big book. And then we got to hand out some of the little library books we brought. I wanted the kids to actually handle them. They probably have never touched a book in their life. So we're doing that, and it's kind of like chaos. I'm thinking, okay, time to bring this to a close. And so they're getting ready to go out to lunch. And then the very last little child they bring up, the teacher brings him up. And he looks like he's only 3, but maybe he's 4. And she said, "This is Isaac." And Isaac comes up real slowly. And she tells him, "Oh, put your hand out and shake her hand." And so we shake hands. I said, "Hello, Isaac. So wonderful to meet you." And then she tells me that this whole week that we've been there, Isaac has been terrified of the team. He's like, run away and hide. I think he even cried he didn't want his Polaroid picture taken unless the teacher sat there with him. For him to come up in that moment and be brave enough to shake my hand and maybe get a little tiny smile, to me that was Jesus right there. Jesus saying, "I'm here to tell you to let go of your fear of the stranger," which we have ourselves, I'm sure. Let go of your fear of people who are different than you and embrace God's love. So for our parting night, we were at the restaurant right across the street from the airport. Believe me, we're on this schedule. And the YCVM team surprised us with this package. And they gave it to Ari, but it is really a gift to all of you who sent us. And it says, "With love from Uganda," and it's a scene made with wood, layers of wood. So you'll have to come up and look at it closely, and we'll find a place to put it. And I'll read to you the card. It says, "Hi, VIM team. God bless you for the good demonstration of God's own heart of love to the Kumi children, community, and to us, the YCVM members. Thinking about all of you and then they list all of our names. It sends a godly smile on our faces. May God bless you. Our regards to the CCUMC Church. And it's signed Silver, Catherine, Churchill, Emma, and members. And so that is for all of you.
So there are more pictures and stories to share in the next two Sunday school times at 9:30. So I invite you to come and join us for that. Would you now take a deep breath? The Spirit is here among us, and the peace of Christ dwells richly in us. So would you share that peace with one another?